Hey, y'all, it's another Wednesday. That means we catch up with our guy, Mike Gittens from the War Rapport for another War Rapport Wednesday. Mike, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man, so we got some interesting news here. We got some kickoff times for the upcoming football season. Of course, that means, a lot of people circle which games they can make, which games are interesting to them. For you, when you saw the kickoff times or some of the proposed times right now, were there any matchups you're like, ooh, that's going to be interesting because it's at that time?
Yeah, Georgia is a night game this year, and I think that's great for fans. For so long, Auburn and Georgia has been one of the premier rivalries in the SEC, Deep South's oldest rivalry, as they've coined it. But that being a night game, I think does a lot for both teams. Like, night games at Jordan-Hare have turned into somewhat of a festival, right? Like, you got the light shows going, and if you've never seen this, it's pretty amazing to be a part of. I've done multiple Iron Bowls at night in Jordan-Hare, just an amazing experience that they've turned that into. So Auburn is different at night.
Yes, it is.
So if you were there for Texas A&M versus Auburn last year at night, where they rushed the field after the game for their 5th win, but it was a pretty great experience. So I'm glad that they're giving that game the honor it deserves by putting it in the night slot.
And anytime I think of Auburn or Jordan-Hare at night, I always think kick 6. Just weird things happen at Jordan-Hare at night, and it's always a lot of fun. Definitely with the game I was thinking of right there. Now, okay, we're just under a month. SEC Media Days coming up. We're deep in talking season right now, but I wanted to ask you, what are like 2 or 3 things that you think Coach Freeze has to address to help the Auburn faithful feel good about this season?
Well, we released an article on the WarReport.com talking a little bit about what he's going to have to answer. Look, all the questions primarily are going to be about his quarterback and his offense this season. If Auburn could have managed 28 points per game in Power 4 play last year, they might have won every game they played. That's how close they were to being a really good team. So people just have questions. You've raised the talent level, and you put a lot of focus on that in talking to the media last year. He kept getting in front of the microphone and telling us, we got to close the talent gap. We got to close the talent gap. Well, they've closed it. And that effort has been recognized nationally, Rex. So everybody understands that the talent level on the Plains is up. Now you need results equivalent to the talent level that you brought in. And, you gave Jackson Arnold the starting job before the end of spring. You named him your starter well in advance. People are going to have questions about his progression. There will be some questions about Jackson Arnold's proclivity to turn the ball over, even though I don't think that those will be fair. And
it is a small sample size with Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, for sure. And there are going to be questions about replacing Jarquez Hunter.
Yes.
Will Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb be up to the task? So those are the questions that I expect of Hugh Freeze here. Look, he's got a very different tone in this offseason than he's had his first 2 off seasons. He's projecting a little bit more confidence, stopping short of predicting
9 wins or something crazy like that.
But certainly you can hear in his tone and in the words that he chooses, and he's a man that chooses his words carefully, so he's honest to a fault, but you can hear he's a lot more confident that they'll be able to run the sort of offense that they're accustomed to running because the talent level is there to execute.
And Hugh Freeze, for all intents and purposes, is the quarterback whisperer, for lack of a better term here. He's developed great quarterbacks. You look at Jackson Arnold, and I think you're right. We're going to say turnovers is Jackson's problem. It is a small sample size of the situation in Oklahoma. For you, hearing Coach Freeze talk about it, hearing players talk about it, hearing your ear to the ground, your ears closer to the ground at the Plains, is Jackson Arnold kind of a guy we can rally behind?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's put in the effort and the work to build that rapport with his teammates this summer. So, look, you get in here and you bring a guy like Jackson Arnold in because you expect him to hit the ground running. And for all intents and purposes, he's done that, right? He's hit the ground running. He's done everything that's been asked of him and more. So Jackson Arnold is a former 5-star guy that Hugh Freeze believed in when he was coming out of high school. He believes in him now, and so now it's time. If the environment was the problem, if you're Jackson Arnold, now is the time to prove it. Because Peyton Thorne was like the 7th best passer by yards in the league last year. But he's still a 2,700-yard passer. And he sat out a game and a half. With the weapons that he has on the Plains, if you think that Jackson Arnold is a better quarterback than Peyton Thorne, you should expect upwards of 3,200 yards this year, I think, in Hugh Freeze's third year.
And before we move on, I think that's the next one that I was always interested in. Cam Coleman, superstar, you mentioned, could be an SEC Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year kind of guy, even possibly a Heisman run. But now he's surrounded by Eric Singleton, Horatio Fields. This wide receiver room is dangerous. Is that going to play a big factor in probably the questions he's going to hear at SC Media Days?
This wide receiver room is not only dangerous, they may be one of the best in the country. They may be one of the best top 5 rooms in the country this year. That's how well they've recruited. Eric Singleton is starting to get first-round draft buzz with his speed and his route running. Cam Coleman is just Cam Coleman, right? Like,
what else do we need to say?
We expect him to be a first-round pick on his measurables and his talent alone. And then you've got some of the other guys who weren't top 50 guys, but they were still top 150 guys. Malcolm Simmons, Bryce Kane, who didn't even play, another top 150 guy last year. But I think that this is the year that you start to see the Freeze offense really take hold. Remember, after every game last year, what did Hugh Freeze say? He said, well, we needed to shrink the playbook. We needed to shrink the package.
Make it more efficient, just be able to communicate with our quarterbacks a little faster. I think you're right, though, is that he's saying, like, okay, these guys are understanding it now. Sure, he's got a lot of transfers coming in. How important is that they're speaking the same language as Hugh Freeze now?
Communication is everything, right? And so to be able to communicate on that same level, you have to understand the concepts. Malcolm Simmons, what Hugh Freeze had to say about him last year was he's extremely talented, he's fast, he's a playmaker. Sometimes he's going 200 miles per hour just doing the wrong thing. So they love the energy and the effort, but we got to get him on the right track. Well, this offseason, in our one-on-one, he said he is on the right track. As a matter of fact, he went as far to say is he doesn't know if anybody made a bigger jump this offseason than Malcolm Simmons did. Now, if you imagine Cam Coleman making that same jump, Perry Thompson making that same jump, and then you add Eric Singleton to that, that's going to be one of the best rooms in the country. So recruiting is everything. And Kirby and Nick Saban, those guys recruited so well.
They really did.
They had a larger margin for error on game day than most coaches in the SEC. Now that Saban is gone, Kirby has that. Steve Sarkisian has built that at Texas. Lane Kiffin doesn't recruit well enough from high school, I think, to have that.
He is your transfer quarterback.
Yeah. Right. Look, he does it in a way where coaching remains super important there, and when he gets out coached, they can't win games, right?
Fair.
They lose those games. But Hugh Freeze doesn't want to be in the position that Lane Kiffin is in, where you've maybe got just enough talent to get there, but he wants so much talent that they can afford to mess up a player or two here. Still win games.
Win by 3 instead of by 10 kind of thing.
Yeah, like look. When it happened to Nick Saban, it happened in epic fashion because that's how hard it was to beat the level of talent that he brought in and that he developed.
Derrick Henry was like a third stringer at one point.
Unreal, right? Like they had Rex. They had such a dynasty as far as talent was concerned. Those guys would go out and they would save Nick Saban at time, and we never talked about it because it was an expectation that they were going to pull it out. If you notice, in Kalen DeBoer's first year in Tuscaloosa, that air of inevitability that Alabama had is gone.
Oh, that's
right?
a good point.
And they lost their first bowl game in
gosh, it's like
over a decade.
It's got to be a decade plus because we're thinking about with Nick. I think that inevitability is right. Like somebody's going to make a play. For example, sorry, Georgia fans, 2nd and 26.
Yeah.
And it worked because it was a guy who we couldn't say his last name when he came off the bench for the first time in Tua Tagovailoa. But
4th and 31.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it just plays were always there.
Sure, why not? But I think that because that inevitability isn't there anymore, and maybe Kirby's teams are great, but this talent level has risen up at Auburn. Auburn can start thinking about, okay, playoffs, maybe knock on the door of the SEC championship, or are we still kind of a ways from that?
Hugh Freeze would tell you that you're getting ahead of yourself.
Okay.
However, make no mistake, they're not saying it out loud, but this coaching staff expects to be in contention for the playoffs come November. Now, what does that look like? Well, you and I have talked about this schedule repeatedly. You start with Baylor August 29th in primetime, at night. That's 8 p.m. Eastern in Waco. So if you win that game, you get Ball State and South Alabama. You're going to win those games. So you're potentially 3-0 to start your season. After that, Rex, you open up SEC play with Oklahoma in Norman. If Auburn can get Oklahoma or Texas A&M, which comes after, both those are road games, then
So you're 4-1.
You're 4-1. You lose to Georgia. You're still 4-2 headed into November, and that is a great spot to be. I'm sorry, into October. That's a great spot to be.
Because now we can get up to that 6-win spot. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but like that's really important because get bowl eligibility as soon as possible.
Yes.
And then keep rolling. Right? Is that the plan?
Well, you have one of the most winnable stretches of Auburn football I've ever seen on the schedule ever.
See how big he's smiling right now, y'all?
This schedule is something that Georgia has gotten traditionally playing in the SEC East. And with the elimination of divisions, Auburn has got a chance at this rotation. After you play Georgia, you get what should be a very different Missouri team, minus Brady Cook and Luther Burton. You get Arkansas, who Josh Pate, my good friend Josh Pate, has said, take the under at 5.5 on Arkansas.
The under?
Take the under at 5.5 on Arkansas. You get Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Mercer. Tell me a more winnable stretch of Auburn football that you've ever seen than that. So if you can get out of that first 6 games 4-2, you potentially could win. You could be favored in your next 5.
Yeah.
Which would put Auburn at 9-2 headed into the Iron Bowl and firmly in. And then it could be a winner-take-all Iron Bowl for a playoff spot. Who knows?
Who knows what? And you bring up an excellent point because I've heard this when I moved down here recently. We were still in the middle of the divisions: SEC East, SEC West. We can talk about it now. The SEC East was just a different level of competition compared to the West.
Yes.
Auburn every year had Georgia and Alabama. So you had Nick Saban and an up and rising Kirby Smart.
Potentially on the road.
On the road.
Both those games,
both of those games. Now that Auburn gets these kind of stretches, is it a sigh of relief? You're like, and you said the word, finally. How good is it that Auburn gets a chance at something that's winnable versus like, okay, we got to go on the road to Athens, to Tuscaloosa. This is just the cross we have to bear.
Well, Hugh Freeze would tell you there's no such thing as an easy SEC
fair.
schedule, but there are easier SEC schedules, and this is that. So they've just got to take advantage of it. You've got a good rotation. You got Auburn and Georgia. I'm sorry, Alabama and Georgia at home. If you're Hugh Freeze, not only do you have to win games, but you have to start to beat your rivals. The domination that Alabama and Georgia have exerted over Auburn is become untenable. And so you've got to flip the script, and now is the time. You've got a changing of the guard going on in Alabama. I think that there's still a lot of nostalgic optimism in Tuscaloosa based on that era of inevitability that they had under Nick Saban. If you ask me, I think that's gone. They're going to have to battle for every win a lot harder than they had to before in the past. And nobody's scared of Kalen DeBoer right now. So they're still recruiting at a high level, but can he develop at the same level as Nick Saban? Well, I don't think anybody can. I think those are unfillable shoes. So if you're Hugh Freeze, the time is now to take advantage of the window that's been open for you to take unprecedented levels of talent on the plains and do something that hasn't been done yet so far at Auburn, and that's make the college football playoff.
So the talent is there, the schedule is there, the coaching is there. It looks like the language. The time is now. Is that it?
The time is now, right? The time is definitely now. In year 3, he will now be judged by results.
Gotcha.
Right. So John Coleman got in front of every camera last year and said, "Oh, we're rebuilding, we're rebuilding, we're rebuilding." But Hugh Freeze himself said it when he got hired. He said, "If we're not in the top 6 or 7 in recruiting by year 3, everybody here is going to be looking for a job." They obviously believe that because they got in the top 7 by year 2. And so now what you're seeing, and we released an article about this on the warreport.com. Please go check that out. Check our written work out there. But recruiting momentum has slowed.
Yes.
Right? And I think now it is about results on the field. Recruits are waiting to see, look, you guys got money, you've got opportunity, you got great facilities, you have a rich tradition, but can you win? And I think if you see Auburn get out the gates fast, the recruiting will pick up, and that 2026 recruiting class will really start to take shape.
All right, the time is now, y'all. Looks like it could be a really interesting year. SEC Media Days just around the corner. We got more to talk about, of course. We'll be here leading up to it and even after SEC Media Days. Before we go, though, Mike, you guys do great work. You've mentioned the War Rapport multiple times, but where can people find you online on social media?
Follow us at the War Rapport on every social media platform. But most of all, go read our written work at thewarreport.com. Again, we talk a lot on YouTube, but we also write a lot. So some great think piece articles there that we're putting out for fans every day. Also follow me at Mike Gittens on Twitter and at Mike Gittens _ on Instagram.
A good follow, good content. It's by Auburn fans, for Auburn fans, and it's good stuff. And we're very blessed to have him here every week. Mike, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Rex.
That does it for another War Rapport Wednesday. We'll see you next week.